Okay, hello everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Let's continue with Master YongHua's instructional Dharma talks.
外边的人更不相信会做得到。那么现在俺们已经做过2个礼拜了。这2个礼拜，在我观察
Outsiders disbelieved we can do this even more. Then now, we already sat for 2 weeks. These 2 weeks are, in my observation.
有的人呢，用功用的还不错，有的人呢，就把这光阴呢，不知道怎么样就过去了。
Some applied effort well. Some let this time went by without knowing how. 在今天呢，我再给各位介绍一位过去的高僧。这一位高僧是在晋朝的时候的。 Today, again, I will introduce one more past venerable eminent monk to you. This venerable eminent monk was from Jin dynasty.
All right. Before we move on to the next topic that Master YongHua wants to talk about, introducing personalities, eminent cultivators in his culture, in the history of Buddhism. Just before that, he said that people couldn't believe that they could do it for 2 weeks now. That they could hold 2 chanqis so far at the time. This is in the early 70s or mid 70s. Don't remember the exact time. But this is new to Buddhism in general in the West because for several reasons. Number one, that basically from Master YongHua's perspective, that the participants could cultivate that vigorously for 2 weeks already, for 2 qis already, where they really applied efforts. According to his disciples, they sat for a long time. That's really unheard of. And so it's a newer form of practices, meditation practices that was not done before in this country. The West, the culture of the West, the culture of self-indulgence. If you try the Weiyang style of Chan training, you see that to be able to sit long in these chanqis is very, very challenging. You not only have to endure a lot of discomfort, but the pain in the legs, the pain in the hips and the ankles are inevitable. Okay. And for us Westerners, we are really weak. We can't handle the pain. We can't handle because it simply doesn't make sense to us that we we work so hard during the week, and on the weekend you have to go to some place and learn to meditation by inflicting more pain, discomfort on your psyche. That's totally unreasonable. So he brought that kind of practice to the West, which is tremendously not well received, and actually were subject to a lot of ridicule and slander. Okay, the 1970s, I don't know what was popular back then. I'm sure back then it's probably mindfulness meditation, because before Mahayana meditation, Chan meditation, Hinayana meditation, namely mindfulness meditation, is prevalent throughout the world, especially in the West, here in Europe. So for him to ask his disciples to endure the intensive Chan training is really, really remarkable, and that he could find people who were willing to do that, see, even more remarkable. Okay, so it's not an easy thing to do, and what is not said, is not clear to most of you, is that for each of those individuals who came and participated in the Chanqis, they themselves encountered a lot more obstructions than people realize. Personal obstructions from the families, from friends, from the all kinds of directions. Okay, I remember I knew one person who was planning to join Master YongHua's Chanqi when I first started 25 years ago. He took care of everything. He dropped everything. And he made arrangements to take care of the house and so forth, and make sure the work is completed, nothing is piling up. So everything is all set. I went the day he started, the ex-wife, he received a letter from the ex-wife lawyer who says now they want to increase the alimony and the child support payments after it has been agreed. Now they wanted to increase it. So you see, he told me, he said, my first reaction was to fight. It's totally unreasonable. I was afflicted. Okay? And he thought about it, and he realized that, I realize it's another obstruction from cultivation. So he said, he told his lawyer, it's okay. I will take a loss. I will pay more. Okay, for my child's sake. So, because it's a Chanqi. So, if you participants look into your own personal life, you will, if you pay attention, you see that you also encountered and are still encountering a lot of personal obstructions. Yes or no? No, so you are the privileged one that have no problems at all. And also, it is important to point out this. After Master YongHua started initiating these intensive training things, they would meditate for 15 to 20 hours every day for the entire week. The other monks, the other way places also imitated, because it's for monks, for us, it's kind of a faith-saving thing. And we can't be lesser monks, lesser temples. Our people cannot be inferior to that, that new guy from China. So they started doing that as well. So on surface, they're doing a similar thing where they would meditate for 10 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours a day, but it's a lot lighter. In particular, the people who are not in the know, they would reduce the sit time, the length of the sit time by less than 1 hour. And because they simply don't realize there's a magic behind 1 hour. You see, the training that Master Hsuan Hua brought to our country is tremendously effective. It was that way. It was designed that way for a purpose. So the other monks and later his own disciples didn't understand that, so they modified the schedule, made it less stringent, less vigorous, and it shows that these people don't know how to teach Chan. Okay, so people would go to the other types of meditation training classes. Some of them are even called Chan training as well. They can get by. They can get through those programs at those places fairly easily. They still, they told me, people have been telling me they do 14 sits as well, albeit it's like they sit for 20 minutes, and then they take it easy for another 20 minutes or so, or maybe sometimes they increase it to 40 minutes, but they fall far short of 1 hour. If you sit for 1 hour per sit, it's a lot more intensive, meaning that you will encounter a lot more problems. Okay, a lot more obstructions, meaning that you need help to resolve those obstructions. So if you organize those events and you don't know how to resolve those obstructions, the people will not come back. Okay, so that's why people. That's why it's not the same. Where the Chan Qis are organized really matter. Take for example, let me digress back in the early part of our Chan Qi this year. We talked about the Gold Mountain Chan Temple that Master Ling You's disciple, Venerable Fa Hai, established and was well known as one of the biggest Chan temple, one of the most famous Chan temple in China. And of course, Fa Hai, if you remember the story about Fa Hai, he really didn't receive that much training from Master Ling You, our Weiyang founder. And but he went out on his own with limited training, and he established his own Chan temple, meditation temple, and he became very famous. It became very famous, I bet, largely due to help from his dad, who was the prime minister of the country. Okay, so I look at that. And the reason that this temple was famous, what is the claim to fame, is the way they sit, how tightly how close the knees are when they were in full lotus. Okay, it makes it very hard. It's a lot more pressure. Typically, when you sit in full lotus, the knees are a little bit further apart, like this. But when it's closer, like this, then it's a lot more pressure on your legs and a lot of things. So they're known for that. And The practitioners claim to fame as they were able to train at that Gold Mountain Chan Temple in China for X number of years, and therefore they're superior Chan cultivators. I listened to that, and to be fair, I've never been there, have no interest in going there at all. I go where the great teachers are. I'm not interested in places that are famous or Chan teachers who have a lot of followers. I'm more interested in their teachings and the disciples they produced. That is very important to me. The teacher may be famous, but if the disciples haven't reached any significant levels, then to me the teachers are no good. Okay, so I wasn't interested I'm not interested in going to Gold Mountain Temple, because to me, sitting that close to the knee, the distance from the knee thing is, to me, is not that important part of the Chan practice at all. Okay, so you see, what we learn from these Weiyang patriarchs is really, really extraordinary, and it's something we need to treasure. And I hope the next generations will learn and will keep this in mind and avoid making the same mistakes. Until you understand, truly understand, don't change anything. Okay? Because to me, it's sacrilegious. Okay? You are not even enlightened yet. And then even after you're enlightened, you cannot even train people yet. How dare you modify the most excellent training methodology from these great teachers? That's nonsense. Okay? Questions and comments? That's a difference, because it's not about numbers, it's not about quantities, it's about qualities. It's about what can you contribute to the community, to society, ultimately. Not about the fact that you're more famous or you have a lot of followers, or you have nice temples. To us, it never mattered. Okay? Never really mattered at all. All right. Let's continue, please.
就是在那个三国的时代，三国呢就是蜀、魏、吴。
That's the Three Kingdoms era. The Three Kingdoms were Shu, Wei, Wu.
蜀就是西蜀，现在是四川。魏就是北魏，北魏啊，吴就是东吴，东吴。
Shu was Xishu, now in Sichuan. Wei was Beiwei. Wu was Dongwu.
吴啊，大约就是在这个南京这一带，东吴。这时候有一位啊，大德高僧。
Dongwu is probably around the area of Nanjing. Dongwu. In Dongwu, at that time, there was a great, virtuous, venerable, eminent monk.
这位高僧啊，是印度人，叫康僧会。这个康僧会，他印度人，因为他父亲呢是个做生意的，
This venerable eminent monk was Indian. His name was Kang Seng Hui. This Kang Seng Hui was Indian because his father was a businessman.
生意的，做买卖。做买卖就由这个印度到越南呢，和中国这各处这么走。
Businessman. Because of the business, he traveled from India to Vietnam to China, traveled everywhere.
走以后啊，他就搬到越南呢去住去了。越南以前叫交趾国，现在叫越南，在越南那儿住。
Later, he relocated to live in Vietnam. Vietnam was called Jiao Zhiguo in the past, now is Vietnam. Lived in Vietnam.
他一生出来呀，就与人不同，非常的聪明，很聪明，很聪明，这个小孩子。很聪明就读书。
He was born different from the others, very smart, very smart, very smart. This little child, he was very smart, so he studied.
把这个世间呢，所有的这个书啊，他都读了。读了，等他11、12岁的时候，他父亲母亲呢，离奇的死了。
He read all the books from this world till he was 11, 12 years old. His parents both died.
死了，他志性啊很孝顺，他的性情很孝顺，也就守孝。守孝完了之后，孝道尽了之后，他就出家了。
His temperament was very filial. He guarded filial piety. After he guarded filial piety, after he fulfilled his filial duties, he left the home life.
出家，他就发愿呢，要弘扬佛法啊。发愿呢，很大的这个愿力，很高的这种行为。
Left the home life, then he vowed to propagate the Buddha Dharma. Vowed. He had huge willpower, this lofty action.
严持戒律，把这个佛教的经典他也读了，有很多，每一天他可以读3万偈颂，每一天读3万偈颂。
He strictly upheld precepts. These Buddhism sutras he also read a lot. Every day he can read 30,000 verses. Every day, reading 30,000 verses.
在这个时候，这个孙权，在三国东吴那皇帝啊，这孙权，他就在东吴啊，这地方建国了。
At that time, this Sun Quan, that emperor of Dongwu, was named Sun Quan. Then, in Dongwu, this place, he established a country.
所有的江南的土地都是归他管理。在以前有一个佛教的优婆塞。
All the land in the river south were under his management. In the past, there was a Buddhist Upasaka.
这优婆塞呀，叫知寸。他呀翻译了很多经典。翻译了很多经典呢，以后又叫他一个徒弟叫季明。
This Upasaka was called Zhi Chen. He translated many sutras. Later, he taught a disciple named Ji Ming.
不是徒弟，就是跟着他学佛法的一个同参。那么这个季明啊，以后又传授给一个人呢，叫知谦的。
Not a disciple, but a co-cultivator who followed him to study the Buddha Dharma. Then, this Ji Ming later transmitted to another person called Zhi Qian.
Stop. You mentioned that this layperson who have another disciple, and then he later called him co-cultivator. I haven't heard this story. I didn't hear this story, maybe because the tape was so bad on my machine back then. So it's my first time as well as yours, most of you. But it's not clear to me why. It's clear to me why he's not supposed to be called disciple. Because a lay person cannot have a disciple in the sense of Buddhist disciples that we call our followers disciples. So far, so good. It's very important to make that distinction. Lay people cannot have Buddhist disciples. They can have disciples if they will, if they want to. But they cannot say that I'm you are my Buddhist disciples. Okay, so that's why, for example, if a student, if a monk or nun learns from a lay person, this monk or nun can be called a student, but cannot be called a disciple of a lay person. All right. And then so Master YongHua changed it to disciple Tudi, his disciple, he changed to a co-cultivator, which I don't understand why he would call a co-cultivator, because apparently this second person is basically following this guy to study. So in our times, he should be considered a student. Yes? So that's why I listen to this story and I have these questions in my mind and hope that they will be answered eventually. It's called active listening, not falling asleep. Go on.
这个知谦非常聪明，他呢精通三藏的这种道理，通达六国的语言。
This Zhi Qian was very smart. He was proficient in the principle of the Tripitaka, proficient in 6 languages.
会说六国的话。他想要弘扬佛法，当时
can speak languages of 6 countries. He wanted to propagate the Buddha Dharma. At that time,
这个东吴这个地方很太平的，他就走到这个东吴这来避难，因为那时候晋献那个汉献帝的时候
Dongwu at that time was very peaceful, so he walked to Dongwu to take refuge, because at that time, at the time of Emperor Xian of Han,
已经各处都战争很多，很慌乱。他走到东吴去避难。
There were many wars at many places. It was in great chaos. So he walked to Dongwu to take refuge.
这东吴孙权呢，听说他有一种才名就有一种非常聪明有智慧是一个人才
This Dongwu Sun Quan heard that he was talented and agile, was very smart and had wisdom, was a talent.
就请他去谈论这个谈论呢，就封他做博士。
Then invited him over for discussions. They discussed. Then Sun Quan appointed him as national master.
是他就帮着来治理国家。这个人呢是什么样子呢？长得很高的，但是像一条竹似的，像一个竹竿子似的，很。
He then helped governing the country. How did this person look like? He was very tall, but like a bamboo stick.
细，不肥。眼睛这个白的很多， 但是那个眼珠子啊是黄的。所以当时人呢，就有这么几句话给他造出来，说是
Very thin, not fat. His eyes has lots of white, but the eyeballs were yellow. At that time, people composed such verses describing him.
是只狼眼多黄，情趣随细是智囊。
Gentleman Zhi's eyes have lots of yellow. Although his body is thin, he is a wisdom sack.
知郎，就是因为他叫知谦，所以啊，就叫他叫知郎。
Gentleman Zhi was because he was called Zhi Qian, thus called him Gentleman Zhi.
眼多黄，说他眼睛啊，很多是黄的，这个眼睛，形躯随细，他的这个身形啊很细的，但是
Eyes have lots of yellow, was to say, his eyes have lots of yellow color, these eyes. Although his body is thin, his body was very thin.
是智囊，是很这个囊就好像他们背的那个东西，那就都叫囊。
But he is a wisdom sack. Sack is like what they carry on the back. That's called a sack.
背着那个装东西的那个袋子，那 box 那都叫囊，是智囊，是有智慧的，一个囊，
The bag for carrying stuff, that is called a sack. Is a wisdom sack. Is a wisdom sack. Was a sack with wisdom.
那么他在这个东吴这儿啊，和翻译了很多经典，因为
Then he stayed at this Dongwu, translated many sutras.
他通晓六国的语言呢，所以把这个佛教的经典翻译出来很多。但是
Because he knew languages from 6 countries, so he translated many Buddhism sutras.
这个人呢，在这个历史上啊，在那个吴。 他们这个东的，是个外国人呢，所以在东翻译出来很多。但是这个人呢，在这个历史上啊，在那个三国那个吴国的历史上啊，没有记载。
But this person in history, at this Wu's history, has no recording.
因为什么没有记载呢？因为他是个外国人，是个外国人呢，所以在东吴这个历史上没有写他。
Why there were no records? Because he was a foreigner, so Dongwu's history didn't record him.
One moment. Bless you. Dongwu, one of the countries back then, was at peace when the neighboring countries were at war. So it shows there, which is a quick comment, is that it shows that this king here has blessings. when the country is at war, is in trouble, that means the king is very afflicted, has a lot of problems. He cannot be happy. Okay, so this king here has blessings. That's why he was able to avoid wars, whereas the neighboring countries were having wars. And you think about it, when one thinks about it, like I came from Southeast Asia, and back then when I was growing up, Vietnam was at war, and the war got over to Laos. What is it called nowadays? Laos? Is it Laos or Cambodia? It's different from, huh? That's a different country, right? Okay, excuse me. Geography is not my forte. And so the countries, the war has a way of enlarging itself, okay? Engaging in neighboring countries. That's what happened. And there's one country in that area is called Thailand. Was not at war at all. It was somehow disconnected all the warring that was going on in the region. So it's kind of interesting. And that country happened to be very strongly Buddhist, more so than the other countries. Okay, so it's not surprising that this at the time of Dongwu back then, the king was interested in Buddhism. That he interviewed this foreigner, and he's so open-minded. Notice that the historical records did not register this foreigner, but the king noticed him and named him national teacher and made him translate a lot of sutras. And so you see, that's a wisdom right there. The wealth and the well-being of a country is really a reflection on the blessings and the wisdom of the leader. Okay? So I hope one of the lessons that I hope that you will learn from this is that in the future, those of you who have the aspirations to go into a leadership position, wherever you are, whether it's at home or raising your family or at your city or your county, your state, your country, and so forth. You should stress accumulating blessings and accumulating the proper knowledge. Okay? Because it makes a huge difference. For example, as a head of your family, you need to, I believe, you need to emphasize virtues, moralities, and all those things. When you do that, good things happen to your family, to your house, your family unit, at a smaller scale. But at a larger scale, this is what is, to me, the history repeats itself. That the leader of the country, the leader of various areas of the country, need to pay attention to that. And this king here, the lesson here, this king here, invested in education. It's very important. So he it's something that's it's not seen, it's not understood. He sponsored this foreign monk who came to this country to lead the home life, and kept him around and made him national master and have him translate a lot of works knowledge of wisdom. Okay, it's very important. So, in a small scale again, as heads of families, you need to plan for the future of your children, the next generation. You need to help them invest in acquiring wisdom, not just worldly knowledge, like this king here. Questions or comments? If you do that, it's going to help tremendously in your children's future. In a similar vein, today is this kind of coincidence. Today at lunch, I have a small habit we develop a small habit when that we talk Dharma at lunchtime. Instead of a typical monk, typical temple, they would eat lunch in silence because they're true cultivators. Okay, we're not. We simply haven't figured out what we need to do yet, if you will. But we developed this style of lunch where during lunchtime where we discuss things and we speak Dharma to each other. And someday, as a coincidence, I told my sangans, I said, as long you are here in our temple, my commitment to you is I would like you to learn. I will invest in your training, in your education. You don't have to do anything. Just I will invest in you for the next 10 years. Because the next 10 years, I keep busy so that we have enough support to invest in you, to continue to invest in you. But after 10 years, then once you have enough skills and you have a good enough base, a foundation, then maybe you'll be ready to contribute yourself. Some of you will be. And those who are still not ready, keep investing until you're ready. Okay? No pressure. Okay, so that's what's happening. This king of Dongwu, okay, he invested. Go on.
他翻译了很多经典，然后他圆寂了。圆寂在这个时候这个康僧会知道。
He translated many sutras. Then he passed away. At that time, Kang Seng Hui knew.
Okay, YouTube has a question.
Brady asks, Master, do you think countries as political entities comprised of people acquire karmic scorecards?
What? The last phrase I didn't quite catch. Countries as political entities are what?
Comprised of people and acquire karmic scorecards.
Acquire karmic scorecards. I don't know. Let's see. Anyone has an idea at all? Karmic scorecards. That's a really elegant way of putting it. Yes, Green.
I think a good example of that might be when we were traveling last year, and while we had our previous person in the White House, I saw a lot of Americans in international zones wearing T-shirts that said in multiple language, "I apologize for our president." As far as a karmic scorecard, you could see people speaking against it or trying to make up for the karma that our country might have been generating other places.
I apologize for what?
I apologize for my president. And
For my presence.
not my presence, my president.
My president.
And it would say it in English, Spanish, French, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, etc. Many, many times on the T-shirt, just to be clear.
Okay.
And I don't think that a country has a karmic scorecard, so to speak, but I would think of a country as the conditions in which causes exist.
All right. There's another comment here. Pink.
Master, I think there's definitely a collective karma, without a doubt. I feel that the crimes against humanities and all the things that have done, it's self-perpetuating.
Okay. All right. YouTube comment.
Alta D says, I think cause and effect applies to everything.
Okay. All right. Let's be clear. Let's be careful with the jargon and the language. Okay. Especially in English, we need to be clear, since Mahayana is quite a new concept, really, still in this country. Not that many people understand. Okay. Mahayana at all. Sadly, it's going to be few more 100 years, really, before Mahayana can take root. Okay. Countries do not create karmas. People create karmas. Okay. So depending on the specific person, the karmas are created. So a person at a position of power and influence would create more karma, has more consequences, more consequential than a small person like us. Okay, so that's why it's important in terms of education that we need to train our children, the next generation, carefully, so that and encourage them to contribute the spirit of contribution to society, to the community. I happen to come from, when I was growing up, from the model where you get education to benefit yourself, make more money, get more power, get what you want. To me, it's a Western value system that is misguided. Okay, so that's why we produce leaders like that's highly admired leaders like Mr. Buffett, who advocates the same model. Basically, his entire life is spent on making money, maximizing profits instead of contributing. That to me is a pity for a person of the power and the wisdom that Warren has. For him to spend his entire life like that is a very bad role model for the future business leaders, in my opinion. The same thing. You happen to be a doctor or senator or politician. You need to set the example. All right? And you set the example by creating good karmas and avoiding creating offenses. Okay? Even monks like us, let me relate to you of a Buddhist teaching that I found interesting. I read somewhere or heard somewhere, I don't remember anymore, when I was practicing meditation on my own, that this is what monks are supposed to do in the morning. As soon as they wake up, what do they do? Anyone cares to make a guess? Some of you might have heard it before. I found it fascinating. If you see the videos in the Zen temples, what do? Chinese temples. They get up, go to the toilet, wash the face, brush the teeth, get ready for whatever, right? That's what is portrayed in the movies, as far as I know. The great movies, that is. In Buddhism, okay, when a monk gets up in the morning, yes, Pink.
Master, do you bow to the triple jewel? Is that the first thing you do?
Not quite. That's why it's so interesting to me. YouTube comment, yes.
Diego says to remember the precepts and to no harm living beings.
Very good. Very close. Almost. Okay. In the morning, after a monk wakes up and decides to get up, because sometimes we don't want to get up for various reasons. It's too cold, the last few days, too early, not enough sleep yet, still tired. Okay? YouTube has a comment. Go ahead.
Elta D says you rub your head.
This guy's weird. He heard it before. Yes, absolutely. See, you guys are not cooperating. You heard it before. Then don't steal my thunder, please. You rub your head, okay? Okay? And you recite a verse. It basically says, I, as a monk, okay, if you rub a head and you say, where am I going to have lunch today? Believe it or not. It's so important to us. Where and how we're going to eat lunch. Now you understand why I'm so scared of my kitchen managers. It's the first thing I'm thinking of is the food, okay? Where and how I'm going to eat lunch. And the thing I remember is that I must be careful not to afflict living beings as a monk. To remind ourselves to avoid afflicting others. Think about that. You might be able to use it at home as well, at work as well. Because the monk's job is to benefit society. Okay? And the first thing you have to remind ourselves, that's not afflict others. Before we can really benefit others. That's the Buddha's teachings, by the way. Continue, please. Oh, time is up. Is there a lot left on this story? A lot. Okay.
在那时候，中国没有寺院，他想到这儿来呀，造寺院。你烧香烧了。
At that time, there was no temple in China. He wanted to come here and build temples. Offered incense?
想到这儿来造寺院呢，于是乎他就穿着这个出家人的衣服，戴着出家人的帽子。
Kang Senghui wanted to come here to build temples. Thus, he wore left-home people's clothes and left-home people's hat.
穿出家人的鞋、袜子，那么就到吴国去，自己造一个小茅棚，供的佛像，就在那地方来修行。
Left home people's shoes and socks and went to Wu, built a little thatched hut himself, offered Buddha statues and cultivated there.
你说这一修行怎么样啊？就有了麻烦。
Can you tell what happened once he started cultivating? There was trouble.
因为中国人没有见着这种的衣冠这种的样子的人呢，当时虽然有佛法，那个正式的。
Because the Chinese had never saw these kind of clothes or this type of people, although there were Buddha Dharma at that time.
沙门呢，很少见的，你可以来装香，你可以来装香，没有关系。没有看见这个沙门。
Formal Sharamana was rare to see. You can come to pack. You can pack. It's okay.
Pack what?
I think he's talking to a
装
disciple.
香
Pack a box. I don't think it's part of the story. He's just talking to somebody in the crowd.
Okay, but you see, this is a person who decides to make a difference. So what does he do? He started by cultivating, by meditating. See that? That's a telltale sign right there that before you can do anything, you need to develop the strength or the skills to do it. In a Western education, worldly education, you acquire knowledge. In Buddhism, we acquire strength and wisdom.
You 你从这儿来，这地方有地方。这儿。没有看见沙门，就很奇怪。
Come here. There is space here. They have never seen Sharamana before, so they felt strange.
大呀，这个也传来了，说你看那个人穿着那么样的衣服他天天在那儿趴下又起来，起来又趴下，不知道他干。
Probably this one spread, that one also said, "Look at that person, dressed like that. He was there every day, down and up, up and down.
在那个茅草房子里头，认为很奇怪的，因为很奇怪的。
Don't know what he is doing in that thatched hut. They thought that was very strange. Thought that was very strange.
于是乎啊，这个政府就知道了。政府知道啊，好像这个警察局啦，或者是FBI 呢，就知道了。
Then this government knew about this. The government knew, like that police office or FBI knew.
知道了，就向那个孙权去报告，说是现在有一个奇怪的胡人来了。
Knew about this, then reported to Sun Quan, said, now a strange Hu Ren came.
胡人，中国人叫外国人都叫胡人，在这个地方他不知道干什么，他奇装异服的，这个一定要检查检查的。
Hu Ren. The Chinese called all foreigners Hu Ren. Don't know what he is doing in this place. He wears bizarre clothes. We must examine him.
Investigate.
We must investigate.
Gee, you need to work on the English.
Yes, Master.
I invest.
哎呀，要就是来叫他来问问话，去来调查调查他。孙权说好啊，叫他来了。
We must call him over to ask questions, to investigate him. Sun Quan said, okay, call him over.
我知道了，这个是在这个汉明帝呀，做梦到金人，说是在西方有佛教，这当然是。
Oh, I know. This is Emperor Ming of Han dreamed about a gold person who said there is Buddhism in the West.
是信佛的吧？这是学佛的僧人吧？叫他来了，叫他就来了。
This was probably a Buddhism believer, a monk who studies Buddhism. Call him over, call him over, call him over. That's the end of this file.
Okay, very good. So you see, again, along the line of these great leaders, the great politicians, they are so intent on importing or bringing in words of wisdom or superior knowledge, if you will. Back then, Buddhism was considered to be superior wisdom from the West, from India. So the emperors the kings were very interested in the good kings who were interested in importing that. Okay, so that's why there's a big difference in the good leadership. They need to invest. They need to make the knowledge, make the wisdom available to the population, to the people. Just like in this country, and what makes it very special to me is that we have all these great institutions who are losing money like crazy. If it weren't for the endowments, then the endowments they receive every year, they have huge endowment funds that will pay for the talent, the great professors that come. They don't come cheap, and then even give away scholarships to bring in students who have potential to be to receive those investments. So that's very important. It is so important that we need to invest in the next generation at all levels, from the leadership level, from a parents level, and so forth, because that knowledge there is essential for the prosperity and the well-being of the nation, and it cannot be stolen. They can what is it? Hack our files, break through our security system, but they cannot steal our knowledge. It's just like very much like you can come to our temple and participate, but you can imitate what we do, but you don't understand why we do certain things until you yourself break through. Okay, so that knowledge is very important. It's critical for the well-being of your family, of your country, of your communities. I believe in that. I believe that, and I'm very grateful for the few of you, because we just have a handful of people who come to our temple. We're too small, too obscure. That take it seriously, because in your own ways, you pick up whatever you can. You go back to your families and your communities and your companies, and you contribute. You know, that's very important in a very, very invisible way, unnoticeable way. Okay. So in a way, that's what matters. We don't need accolades. We don't need recognition. We're doing what the sages have been doing in the history of great countries, successful countries. Continue, please.
叫他来，生前就问他说：“你是个干什么的？”他说：“我是个学佛的。”生前说：“什么叫佛呀？”
Then Sun Quan asked him, "What do you do?" He said, "I study Buddhism. What can be called Buddha?"
他说：“佛就是当时是梵王，是净梵王的太子。他出家在雪山6年以后。”
He said Buddha was the prince of King Pure Rice. He left the home life and stayed in the snow mountain for 6 years.
我在菩提树下夜读明星而悟道，成佛了。成佛呀。
Later, under the Bodhi tree, he gazed at the bright stars at night and awakened to the way and became the Buddha.
等他圆寂入涅盘之后，又得到很多的舍利。
After he passed away and entered nirvana, people obtained many shararas.
Okay, I remember the story now. Yeah, okay. Okay, I heard this before. Yes, go on. It's about shariras. And, okay, it's cool.
恶欲王造了84000个塔，供养他舍利。这个佛是最有威灵的，是最妙不过的。
King Asoka built 84,000 stupas for the Shararas. This Buddha is the most prestigious and the most wonderful.
孙权说：“你这个说法呀，完全是说的夸张其词，夸张就是故意呀，说的太玄妙了，根本没有这个道理。”
Sun Quan said, "Your statement is totally exaggerated. That is deliberately making it too mysterious. There is absolutely no such thing."
如果你能得到舍利，给我看看，我也给你造个塔呀。孙权这么样讲。
If you can obtain any Sharara for me to have a look, then I will build a stupa for you too, Sun Quan said.
这个康僧会当时他也有很多的徒弟，很多的跟着他，有几十人那么多。他就向孙权说好。
At that time, there were many disciples following Kang Seng Hui, several dozens of them. He said to Sun Quan,
他们在一个礼拜，他们求舍利，给这个陛下你看一看。于是乎啊，他带着他这个徒弟就在佛前呢。
Okay, we will seek for Shararas within a week, for your highness to see. Thus, he guided his disciples in front of the Buddha.
在这个净室里边呢，先沐浴斋戒把身上都洗干净了，然后在佛前呢放上一个桌子。
Inside this pure room, they first showered and fasted. They cleansed their bodies. Then, in front of the Buddha, they placed a table.
桌子前边呢，上边呢放上一个铜的瓶子，说我们一定要求舍利，要得到舍利呀，才可以。他说对康僧会说。
Kang Seng Hui put a copper vase on top of the table and said that we must request Shararas. We must receive Shararas, he said. Kang Seng Hui said,
这佛教兴亡在此一举。那么，要是这回得到舍利，这佛教就该兴了。
The rise and fall of Buddhism will be up to this. This time, if we receive Shararas, Buddhism would rise.
我们得不到舍利，佛教就该亡了。我相信呢，这个佛法呀，应该到中国来，我们一定会得到舍利的。这一个礼。
If we can't receive Shararas, Buddhism would fall. I believe this Buddha Dharma should arrive in China. We will for sure receive Shararas.
拜，我们大家诚心一点来拜。于是乎，这一个礼拜大家就拜了一个礼拜。
This week, we should bow with sincerity. Thus, in this week, everybody bowed. They bowed for a week.
还和以前一样，没有舍利，没有得到，没有得到舍利，这个孙权呢就来问他说怎么样呀
？And it was still the same as before. No Sharara. They didn't receive any. Sharara. Sun Quan came and asked him,
你得到舍利了没有？康僧会说没有，但是我请你在 多给1个礼拜的时间。
How was it? Did you receive any sharara? Kang Senghui said, Not yet, but please give us 1 more week.
我们一定可以得到。孙权说好，再给你1个礼拜。
We will certainly receive shararas. Sun Quan said, Okay, I will grant you 1 more week.
这回康僧会带着徒弟更诚心了，来求舍利。
This time, Kang Senghui guided his disciples to request the shararas with greater sincerity.
1个礼拜就已经过去了第2个礼拜也完了，还是什么也没有，没有舍利。
The first week has passed. The second week was over as well. There was still nothing. No sharara. No sharara at all.
有舍利，孙权一问呢，说你这第2个礼拜得到舍利了吗？康僧会说没有。
Sun Quan then asked him, Did you receive any sharara during the second week? Kang Senghui said, No.
我在这个孙权已经就很不高兴，就要说你对着我来打妄语我国家有国家的法律呀，你知道吗？
Sun Quan was already very displeased. He said, You lied to me. My country has national laws. Do you know?
已经就要杀他。他说：“请你再给我1个礼拜的期间。”孙权一听说好，
He already wanted to kill him. He said, Please give me 1 more week. Once Sun Quan heard, he said, Okay.
孙权也是一个很聪明的、很量大的一个人。于是乎然后说好，再给你1个礼拜的期间。
Sun Quan was also very smart, very tolerant person. Thus he said, Okay, I give you 1 more week again.
这回的康僧会对他徒弟就说了：“说嘛，在这个礼拜如果得不到舍利，俺们不要等到皇帝来杀俺们，俺们自。”
This week, Kang Senghui told his disciples, he said, This week, if we can't receive an sharara, we don't need to wait for the emperor to kill us.
你都把自己杀了好了，俺们自己都应该自杀了，俺们这所有的人都不活着了，因为这个。
We should kill ourselves. We ought to all commit suicide. None of all of us should be alive. So.
佛法是应该有感应的，俺们现在这个时候也是应该到了，俺们还没有得到感应，这个是俺们还有什么面目来弘扬佛？
Because this Buddha Dharma should have responses, now the time has arrived. We still have no response.
于是乎，他的徒弟就都大家发愿。
What faith do we have to propagate the Buddha Dharma? Thus, all his disciples vowed.
如果这个礼拜不得到舍利，就大家都死，一起自杀。这样子呢，这1个礼拜已经到了第6天了，完。
If we don't receive any sharara this week, we shall all die. We will commit suicide together. Like this, this week has reached the 6th day.
现在也没有什么动静，还是那么是什么消息也没有，连个梦也没有做，啊，等到第6天的晚间。
At night, there was still no activity, nothing at all, not even a dream. Then they waited until the night of the 6th day.
第7天一早起5点钟的时候，这五更大约就5点钟的时候了，就听这个瓶子里头嘣一声。
On the morning of the 7th day, at the 5th watch, the 5th watch is about 5 o'clock, they heard a sound, bong, from inside the vase.
这一声这响的时候，他们白天晚间都在那拜的。这康生会就自己去拿。
This sound, at the time it banged, they bowed. Day and night, they were bowing there.
拿起来这个铜瓶子一看，里边果然有一颗五色光明灿烂的舍利。
Kang Seng-hui himself went to pick up the copper vase. Sure enough, there was a 5-colored, bright and brilliant Shirara.
放五彩光的这么一颗舍利有了。那么在这个第6天晚间，大家已经就都喝得不得了，都怕死。
It is emitting light, a Shirara that's emitting 5-colored light. They got it. On the night of the 6th day, everybody was so scared.
死了这到第7天的没有，一定大家都要自杀了。这个第7。
Everybody was scared to death. If there was still nothing till the 7th day, then everybody had to commit suicide.
一天一早就有了就好了，就去给这个拿着给孙权去看。
Then, in the early morning of the 7th day, they got it. It was all good. They brought it to Sun Quan to see.
这孙权一看，这文武百官这时候都非常的紧张，非常的都要看这个舍利。
Sun Quan took a look. The hundreds of civil and military officials were all very nervous at that time. They all wanted to see this Shirara very much.
孙权拿起这个瓶子，然后说：“那我来看。”拿起这。
Then Sun Quan picked up this vase. He said, "Let me have a look."
铜瓶子就往出一倒，用这个铜瓶子倒到一个铜盘子里头，谁不知闻那铜。
He picked up this copper vase and poured it onto a copper plate.
铜盘子一倒，就把铜盘就给碰坏了，那个铜盘呢就坏了。孙权肃然起敬，就这样子，这。
Unbeknownst to him, the Shirara damaged the copper plate by landing on it. Sun Quan was immediately struck with awe. Wow, just like this, he said.
真是祥瑞的不得了这真是宝贝了。于是乎就发心给造一个造个塔，又造个寺院。
This is indeed auspicious. This is indeed a treasure. Then he brought forth the mind to build a stupa and also build a temple. 这个寺院呢，就叫建初寺。
建初，建呢就是建立的建，初啊就是初一初二那个初，建初寺。
This temple was called Jianchu Temple, built first temple, Jianchu Temple.
因为它是头一个寺院，所以叫建初寺，就是 beginning， 这个开始的意思。
Because it was the first temple, therefore it was named Jianchu Temple. This was the beginning. It meant a start.
就请这个康僧会啊，在这个地方就住下了。在这个时候啊，刚看见这个舍利的时候，感觉康僧会又祈祷。
Sun Quan invited Kang Seng Hui to reside in this place. At that time, at the first sight of the Sharara, Kang Seng Hui prayed.
说是啊，这佛已经显了威灵啦，现在呀，这个法云呢，已经到这个中国啊，
He said, the Buddha has already shown his prestige. Now the Dharma cloud has already arrived in China.
应该呀，再显大威灵啊。那么，于是乎就对这个孙权说啊，说这个
It should show great prestige again. Thus, he told Sun Quan,
这舍利呀，结火冻烧啊，也烧不坏的。你要不相信，
this Sharara, even when the fire at the end of the kappa of decay is burning, cannot damage it.
现在拿一个打铁的那个打铁那叫针子，就打铁的那个东西，锤呀，它底下这个东西这叫针子，你用这个铁锤搞到那个针子上，你怎么打也打。
If you don't believe this, just take an anvil for forging ironware. You can use this iron hammer to hammer this anvil.
打不坏这个舍利啊！他对这孙权说，所以孙权说试试看，就把这个舍利放到那个铁针子上了。
No matter how you hammer it, it won't damage the Sharara. Sun Quan said, try it. Then he placed the Sharara on an iron anvil.
这个用这个一个最有力的这个力士，一下子就打进去了，就打下去了。打下一看，这个针子也出个坑，是这个锤也出个坑，唯独
He asked the strongest warrior to hammer it. After that, they took a look. This anvil had a dent. This hammer also had a dent.
这个舍利没有坏，所以孙权说：“哎，这真是宝贝了，这比钻石都硬。”
But only this Sharara was undamaged. So Sun Quan said, this is indeed a treasure. This is harder than diamond.
这个东西太硬了，比钻石都硬，你懂吗？钻石Dharma，比它都硬，这样子，所以
This is too hard. Harder than diamond. Harder than diamond. Like this.
大家就相信呢，这个舍利呀是不可思议。那么孙权呢，以后就大兴佛教，
So, everybody believed this Sharara is inconceivable. Since then, Sun Quan greatly propagated Buddhism.
Inconceivable, not unconceivable.
Inconceivable.
这个东吴这个地方，各处都发扬佛教。
In this place of Dongwu, everywhere he propagated Buddhism.
Okay, let's stop here. Okay, questions or comments? So this is early days of Buddhism going from India to China. And it's new to China. Was not even going from India to China yet. Buddhism is not known in China back then. So this reminds me of, I don't know, you heard the story, it reminds me of Georgetown, or, where people kill themselves to prove their faith. So to me, it's kind of funny that in the early days, we needed to have these missionaries, if you will, and who would take great risks with their lives. And somehow he managed to get several dozen followers to follow him. And that's a lot of people. I don't know how they could practice together, because there's really no building or whatever, no temples whatsoever. But they gather together and they practice, and so the king comes around, say, this Buddhism is for real or not? I say, of course, it's for real, because in our tradition, excuse me, we propagate Buddhism by sending out sharias. That's how we got started. Yeah. And so he was asked to prove that sharias exist, and so they prayed, and it's just like everything in Buddhism. We have to prove our sincerity before miracles happen. The same thing as Catholicism. The early missionaries have to risk their lives, even lose their lives, to make a point. Okay? So in this case here, a very successful story, a happy ending story, where a sharia actually happened in the last minute when they were about to give up hope. The only thing they have left is for this miracle to happen. Otherwise, they have to kill themselves. And so the sharia came around, and apparently it's harder than steel. Not sure how he knew that it was harder than steel, because I wouldn't dare, hit a sharia. It would be a horrible offense. You hit a sharia, and it happened to be a Buddha sharia, and you damage it. It's, what is that called? Shedding the Buddha's blood. I would not be caught doing that. I don't care. It's horrible. You lose one life. But if you crush the sharias, you go down to the hells, the Vichy hells, for billions of lives. Yes, Orange.
Mô Phật mà thầy. Thầy ở đây có nhiều xá lợi quá chừng mà bây giờ thầy không để cái chùa này là chùa xá lợi thầy. Là con hy hữu lắm á thầy. Yeah. Tự nhiên thầy có cái chùa như vậy mà không để cái chùa xá lợi, uổng lắm rồi đó. Mô Phật.
He said, we have so many sharias, why don't we call it sharia's temple? It's because my neighbor also has chosen a name, Sharir Temple, only 3 blocks away. Isn't there a temple called Sharir Temple close by? That's Xian Tong's ex-temple. That's where she came from.
Này là xá lợi thiệt qua. Cái này chùa này để trưng xá lợi.
Oh, so the other one is a name we have is real sharirs. Why don't we, take over the name and then exhibit sharirs as well? It's not good. It's not good for the other temple. We can't do that to the other temple. They've been here a lot longer than we have. So it's not good. It's a mean competition, I would say. We don't do that. Okay? Anyway, but since she brought it up, this woman here has a way of, I think she's out to promote the temple in some way, some underhanded ways, I think. But we also have a small parallel, that when I first started at Loom Mountain Temple years ago, over 10 years ago, I started I decided to be my own. Didn't have anyone to be associated with. Refused to be under anyone at all. Refused to ask for help. Okay, even though I could have got help, people offered help, but I refused. YouTube has a question. Go ahead.
Vicky asks, Master, it's amazing that our temple has a collection of shariras. What do you think is the significance?
I'm coming to that. Okay, now is 2 of them trying to engage me on this story. And so I deliberately chose to be on my own, not to ride on my master's reputation, Vietnamese masters or Chinese masters, okay? For some reason, I prefer to be independent because didn't want to ask for any kind of help. And somehow we got into Loom Mountain Temple, and I offended the last abbot, the ex-abbess of the temple. So she decided to destroy my reputation. She basically said, if you kowtow to me, I will spare you. You don't kowtow to me, I will ruin your career, ruin your life. I said, no nun can talk to a monk like that. It's not about me and you. But if I kowtow to you, then it sets a precedent in the Dharma, Mahayana Dharma. I'm trying to teach that a monk would kowtow to a nun under duress. Okay? That's not going to happen. Go ahead and kill me. And she destroyed my reputation. No one came to the temple anymore, including Go Yin there, the spy. She only came on the weekend, for some reason. Her plan, I think, was that to patiently wait to tell me, to teach me that my actions were wrong. Okay, and that's her. And so I was resigned to the fact that no one believed me. I was an unknown, no proven track record, and there is this disciple of the DRBA, none from Master YongHua's system, who stood up there and said I was a bad monk. And so basically my career had a very rough start and should be going nowhere for the next 10 years. It takes about 10 years to recover from that. It happened to many monks before, and even one layperson of Northern California, San Jose in particular, suggested to me, he says, don't be discouraged. I have a brother in Thailand, Chiang Mai, who has a very nice temple there. And you can go there and just leave the country, go there for a few years. You come back, no one's going to remember you, okay? And that's along the line of the suggestions. Monks who were slandered and be accused of those so-called crimes, no matter true or not, would have to leave the country, would have to leave the area, and go to another area where they don't know, so that they can get support and continue their practice, continue the cultivation. I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. If no one comes to the temple, then you have no money. Luckily we have a little bit of money left. Being an ex-businessman, I figure I could last about 10 years if you watch the money carefully. So I told Xianjie and Xianshun, I said, I'm not worried. Okay, if people don't come, close the temple. Let's meditate. Turn this into a real meditation temple, just for us, just the three of us. Okay, so even if lay people didn't come, doesn't matter. We just meditate until we run out of money, and then we go to the mountain and cultivate. What's the big deal? Who needs a temple anyway? It was very, very tough times. Very, very difficult. A lot of pain and suffering. And it was like hell. The temple, Lu Mountain Temple, was like hell during those years. And so I looked at Xianjie, I looked at Xianshun and say, well, and was another person also left, another Shamini also left as well. Couldn't take the pressure. So I waited for them to leave so that I can abandon the temple and go to the mountain. It's always my wish to go to the mountain and practice. If you're really a man, you go to the mountain and practice. You don't need anything. Our tradition, what do we need? Wei-Yang tradition. Who needs a temple? But they wouldn't leave. For some reason, these two idiots wouldn't leave. A bit crazy. So I was stuck. Couldn't do anything. No one came. These idiots would not leave. So I said, okay, and then we do it for 10 years, and then when we have no more money, when the money runs out, no more assets, whatever we have, we sell it and we cultivate. We can't anymore, then we figure out what to do next, probably go to the mountain. And that's when, out of the blues, a lay person offered me 10,000 Buddha's relics. Okay? And that person there is sitting right there in front of you. Okay? Who later became a monk. Because part of my accepting his 10,000 relics collection is that you have to shave your head to take care of it, because I can't take care of relics. I have no interest in taking care of relics. I'm Chan, okay? I'm no relics monk. So he had to lead the home life. He gave me his entire collection, and he has to also shave his head to take care of it. That's the story of our collection. So, in a small way, also the Buddha's relics appeared from nowhere to save our skins. And the rest is history. Okay, any questions and comments? Huh? Sure, monk? And it turns out he's a real Shariri monk. During those years, Shariras keep on appearing. He reigned Shariras, not just one Shariras, many Shariras. Yes? White.
Ở gần thầy á là con nghe thầy nói tổ chức thiền thất với Phật thất thì con dự như là các nơi khác thôi. Nhưng mà khi có một lần buổi sáng con ngồi thiền với thầy thì khác, mà với cô Phước Từ thì nó khác. Từ đó con mới thấy cái giá trị của ngồi thiền thế nào rồi con mới gần gũi với thầy, chứ trước con không có biết chùa nào, con cũng không có. Nhưng mà buổi sáng sau khi công phu khuya xong rồi ngồi thiền với thầy thì nó khác, mà cái cô Phước Từ ngồi nó khác. Con nói wow, ngồi thiền nó có cái lực gì ngộ lắm. Từ đó con lúc nào cũng muốn xuất gia, muốn ngồi gần thầy để mà học. Rồi khuya đó con ngủ trong cái phòng sau chính điện á.
So
Con nghĩ là cái chùa nó
let me
có.
translate. Yeah, hang on. Okay. So he says he was only, as a lay person, who was only interested in going in temples and participate in the chanties. And he came down to Lu Mountain Temple because he didn't say that, because one of his acquaintances from San Jose introduced him to us. Yes? And he says, check it out, check them out. So he went down to our temple and for a week of Chanchi or something like that. And he sat in the morning with what I call ugly nun. She's at the time was a first stage art, and she Vietnamese nun, and he was sitting in Blue Mountain Temple, and with her, and he saw, and then I came around, and he notices a big difference between sitting with her around and with me around. So that's why he became intrigued, and he sought to try to sit close to me as possible, as close as possible. Okay.
Nghĩ là người ta nói trong sách nói là cái người nào gặp xá lợi Phật đó thì phước báo rất là lớn. Mà con nghĩ bây giờ chính có thể thầy là người để mà đưa cái bộ xá lợi con cho mọi người đều được chiêm bái, chứ con cất trong phòng con mấy năm nay cũng không có ai ích lợi gì hết. Từ đó con mới quyết định là con cúng dường cho thầy. Tại vì con nghĩ thầy là người có thể triển lãm nó cho mọi người cùng xem, cùng hưởng cái phước báo với để tu học với là phước thế gian cho người ta. Nên con mới cúng.
Oh, sorry. And so he decided that he had like a lot of shares in his possession, and he wanted to share that with people, because when the people can bow to the shares, see the shares, they gain a lot of blessings. So that's why he thought of giving his collection to me, so that I can exhibit them at the temple and benefit a lot more people than the collection staying in his private collection. Are you done?
thầy thì con thấy tiến bộ, thì từ cái tiến bộ đó thì Xá Lợi nó tới thêm để mà chứng minh và khuyến khích cho mình đi đúng, cho nên con rất là thích tu vậy thôi.
So he wasn't really interested in living a home life at all. He just liked meditating and so forth. Okay, and the more shares came after that. It turns out that the funny thing is that honestly, I never took the shares collection seriously. I'm from Mahayana tradition. We don't know anything about shares. I didn't understand shares at all, someone from the CTTB gave me a shares of Master YongHua and one of Shakyamuni Buddha, and I knew they were invaluable. They're priceless. But I left in the Buddha Hall in the Lu Mountain Temple, and they got stolen. That's how that's how careless I was. So didn't understand at all the importance of shares. But he's starting to give me his entire collection, which has about 10,000 relics, and that's why we call that collection 10,000 Buddha's relics. Okay. Later, his acquaintances also gave me a tooth relic, the first tooth relic we have. They offered us a tooth relics. So we sent him to go pick up the tooth relic, and he brought it back to San Francisco airport. I remember that, and I think either he or someone told me that I'm supposed to go to the San Francisco airport to greet the tooth relic. It's a big deal. So I had to drive to San Francisco airport and to greet the tooth relic that he brought himself, okay, carried by hand himself from Asia. And he came, and he told me later that he was told that Master YongHua was there to greet the tooth relic. That's how important it was for the tooth relic to come to the United States. Right? You remember that?
Cái vị thần Xá Lợi đó nhập vô một cái người nói với con.
Yeah, the relic's spirit guardian signaled him through by entering probably his sister, and told him that of the story. That what did he tell you?
Cái Xá Lợi này qua đó không phải là thầy Vĩnh Hóa không đâu, mà có Hòa Thượng Tuyên Hóa tới nhận đó đó. Nói với con vậy. Nói đón cái răng.
So this tooth relic here coming to the United States, so will be greeted by me, but also by Master YongHua as well. That's how important it is for it to come to America. I see. So anyway, so that's how the thing with us as well. So in a way, because of that, of those relics collection, I must repent and confess to you and repent that I didn't take it seriously. I look at it as a fun thing. Never realized the importance of the relics at the temple. It's very, very big. And he came back and he kept on telling me that relics have a way of flying away by themselves. So instead of relics disappearing, more and more came to the point we have so many relics. We probably have the biggest relics collection in America, in the Americas, if you will. So that's how it is. And later, years later, after I realized, 3 years later, I realized that with the relics coming to Lu Mountain Temple, the faithful the people started coming and go in there. Master Shia disciples starting believe started believe me instead of the rumors. And so basically, I realized that the relics collection, the relics came to save my skin. So within like 3 years after the relics came, we're back to normal. People started coming back, and so we resumed normal operations. Shenshin, you remember anything? No? No. Oh well. Anyway, so that's how it is. The same, so in a similar fashion, the relics came to save my skin, just like the relics came to save Kang Seng Hui skin as well. Okay. Anything else anyone likes to add? Yes, Orange.
Mô Phật bạch thầy. Thầy Tám, thầy Sáu đó. Ngày xưa đó, ngài có cái xá lợi quá là nhiều. Ngài cũng biết những cái chùa sanh cô dê rất là nhiều, mà sao thầy không có cúng dường cho những người đó, mà cúng dường cho thầy YongHua là cái chùa nhỏ xíu mà chùa nghèo thế mồ luôn vậy thầy.
So she asked him, you're from San Jose, from Northern California. You went to a lot of Vietnamese temples, much bigger. Probably heard of Master Shenhua's temples as well. But why did you choose to give the collection to a tiny and obscure temple in Southern California?
Con không biết, nhưng mà tôi nghĩ cái duyên của Pháp nó đi như thế đó thôi. Nhưng mà đối với con, xá lợi không phải là mình quý như là mình có hột xoàn hay gì, mà con quý là Đức Phật đem cái Pháp tới đây cứu mọi người, trong đó có con. Nhờ Phật Pháp mà con không đọa, mọi người không có đọa. Từ cho đó con kính trọng xá lợi, chứ không phải mà giống như suốt hột xoàn hay là những đồ quý. Con quý cái Pháp á, rồi từ đó mới sinh ra kính trọng xá lợi.
He had some. He really valued the Buddha Dharma that can rescue and liberate living beings, and including himself. That's what he highly values, and that's so. Not necessarily. Cái gì ha? Quý cái Pháp nhưng mà quý xá lợi.
Con quý cái Pháp của Đức Phật đem tới để dạy cho mình đó.
Yeah, he values the Buddha Dharma, not necessarily the relics.
Với cái duyên thứ hai nữa là lúc đầu ở bên Việt Nam mà ta không có biết con, và cũng coi con không có ra gì đó, mình xin họ không có cho nữa. Thì tụi nó giới thiệu quá thì cái cô Trúc đó, cổ nể, cổ mới bưng xuống cái xá lợi mà cổ có hồi cổ 4 tuổi đó, giống như một cục đá sạn nhỏ như hột mè thôi. Sau cổ mới nói là cái đó là cổ có đầu tiên mà nó không có quý, tại vì bây giờ cổ có quý hơn. Thì cổ nể người bạn con mà cổ bưng xuống cổ cho con. Thì cổ không ngờ là vừa để xuống trước bàn là sinh ra ngay 2 ngôi trước mặt mọi người luôn.
And he says when he first started, he loved shares as well, but he asked for shares and no one would give shares to him. They considered it very invaluable. So he went to one of his acquaintances, and this person knew about him and knew that he wanted sharir, so she brought down just a solid, a stone kind of sharir. She says, that's the first one I have. It's nothing special now. I have a lot more precious sharirs, rare sharirs. But right there, in front of her eyes and many people's eyes, 2 more sharirs appeared, yeah, without praying.
Sinh ra trước mặt cô đó luôn. Yeah. vừa để xuống bàn là sinh ra luôn.
As soon as she brought it and put it on the coffee table, two more shears appeared from nowhere.
Từ đó
In
cổ mới
front of
bưng
a
hết
lot of
những cái loại quý ở trên, cổ đưa xuống cho con không giới hạn luôn á. Rồi từ đó con với cổ trở thành cái bạn thân về sưu tầm xá lợi.
Because of that
đó,
manifestation, she decided to give him a lot more shears without any conditions.
Rồi sau đó là trở thành bạn thân trong nhiều năm lắm. Rồi
That's
cổ biết
how the collection was built up.
Cổ biết cái bộ sơ lập của con, cho nên khi cổ nghe nói là con cúng rất là ngạc nhiên, cho nên cổ thôi được rồi, vậy là ông thầy này rất là tốt rồi, tôi cúng cái răng. Cổ đưa cái răng không có điều kiện gì hết.
Yeah, when she heard that, so his collection came from her. She gave him most of that. And when she heard that he was willing to give up his collection to me, she says, well, that must be a good monk. So therefore, she decided to give me the tooth relic.
Có một cái hay nữa là cái răng của cúng cho thầy đó, thầy cho con về cảm ơn cô. Thì cô đó với một người bạn nữa mới đọc kinh Nam Tông, để đọc cái kinh Nam Tông, con không biết kinh gì. Thì cái bài kinh vừa dứt, cái tiếng cuối cùng là một ngôi màu hồng hiện lên trước mặt con luôn. Cổ trước mặt cổ thấy luôn, tại vì có ba người, hai cô đó với ông đó tụng, con không biết tiếng Phạn thì con ngồi sau lưng. Thì vừa dứt một cái tiếng cuối cùng của bài kinh nó hiện lên, cái ngôi đó đem về đây mới biết để lạc đâu rồi. Màu phiên đẹp lắm.
So from then on, for quite a while, they would recite these pali things, and sharyas would appear. So that's why eventually we call him Sharira monk, because they appear for him, but it never happened for me. There's a difference between faith. Okay? The Buddha knows. He's not impressed with my lack of sincerity, so I don't deserve any shariras. It's only collection by name only, not because I really deserve it. Now you know why. Instinctively, I said, you better shave your head and take care of it, because I wouldn't know what to do with it. Yes, Orange.
Cái ngày thầy kêu đi lên thỉnh xá lợi thì tụi con có đi theo thầy nữa, mà con không biết cái xá lợi là cái gì. Tự nhiên con vô cái nhà của thầy này nè, thầy mở cửa vô cái nhà xe cũng là không có mấy gì mà tốt đẹp nữa. Xong á, trời ơi, thấy cái xá lợi á, tụi con mừng quá chừng gì đó. Mừng mà thầy cúng cho mình cũng hỗn lắm. Thầy cúng cho thầy, tụi con cứ xin cứ theo kệ thầy, xin xá lợi của thầy. Thầy cứ đút cho. Con nghĩ trời, con cũng rất là có phước mới theo được thầy đi là thỉnh được cái xá lợi. Tự nhiên mở cái cửa vô xá lợi quá chừng đi, ở đâu cũng xá lợi hết trơn, nó thấy ham quá chừng. Tụi con không biết, nó thấy xá lợi nó bóng này ham quá chừng. Tụi con cứ xin thầy hoài, cứ đi gần kè cái xe, thầy cho con đi, thầy cho con. Cái ổng nói ok, lấy đi. Con có hưởng được những cái phước cái xá lợi.
So she told the story of when we decided to drive up from Los Angeles to Oakland, where the Sharia monk was staying as a lay person in this converted garage of this property that he rented. So a few lay women went with us. That included, I think, Xian Shi, were you there? Were you along? Xian Qie too, right? Basically, back then we have nothing to do. So we closed the temple and just drove up north and went to his house. And so a few lay people came along, and including Goyin. Goyin said that we walk in there and look, and the garage is full of relics. she says she's crazy about relics. She said she came along hoping to beg for future years. Okay, and that's her ulterior motives. They came along, and so the few of them came along as well. Women came along, and they were so happy because they asked for relics, and they were giving relics. They're so happy. And later I found out that I went to her house. Never went to her house, by the way, until her mother died. Her late mother died. Went to her house and realized she has a lot of relics herself. This woman is crazy about relics. And I was really surprised that she had so many relics. And so now, come to think of it, she changed her mind about me because she saw so many relics. Not because of relics. She claimed to change her mind only to get on my good side so that she can ask for more relics from me, hoping that I would give more relics to her, but I never did. The only relics she could get from us is through the relics monk. I didn't give anything to her. Maybe a few, that's it. But so ours went from 10,000 to about 1 million, very quickly. But in gratitude for how it got started, we call our collection 10,000 Buddha's Relics Collection. But it's quite a lot more than that. Okay, time is up. Thank you, everyone. Keep warm.